Hello everyone, Zach here with Whole Latte Love, and today we're going to be doing an unboxing today of our Ceado Life multi-purpose grinder and the Ceado Hoop, earlier released this year as a non-bypass or radial infusion brewing technique. So with that we have a little bit of a scale, we'll be doing a pour over, and then we'll also dial in that grinder on espresso as well, kind of showing you how quick we can actually use that multi-purpose grinder. So with that, don't be afraid to ask any questions. We have Brian back there, Mark as well, taking any questions you might have because we'll be kind of running through this pretty quick, doing both of these brewing methods. We have a couple other things out here today. We have a Fellow Stag kettle, and then we also have the Fellow Tally as well down here. Perfect. And this is going to help us with those brewing methods, kind of sticking to a 1 to 15 brewing method with that Ceado Hoop. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Just another reminder, we also are doing CoffeeCast with this, so if we don't answer any of your questions today, we can easily hop on with a coffee professional at any time. Perfect. All right, so let's start off with the Ceado Hoop zero bypass or no bypass brewing method. So bypass is a pretty interesting method. Or low bypass or no bypass is a pretty interesting method that they've been developing. Something that you find within V60 pour overs is the fact that there is a lot of water that is bypassing the ground bed. So they developed a radial infusion to get by with that. This makes our pour over method a lot easier as well, just having to pour along this outer ring. So if we can actually get a shot of that, these two components actually screw off from each other, and you'd be pouring into this outer ring with your water, and all of your coffee goes into the inner ring using these little holes that you can actually find on the inside diameter of this inner ring. Water kind of shoots out as long as you're doing a nice consistent pour to the outer ring. And you can actually change your extraction percentages up to 8.8%, depending on if you're agitating or if you're using a single filter or a double filter. With that, you can also use metal filters as well if you don't want to waste any of these filters. Let's go ahead and see if I can open this bag here. And today, for our brew method here, I'm going to be using a Tolima. And then on espresso, I'll actually be changing it up and showing that we can actually quickly throw in a hopper and brew some crema wave on the espresso machine right behind me. All right, so as we have that going, we can also get into this Ceado Life grinder, this multi-purpose grinder. It's going to be 50 millimeter flat steel burrs. And with those steel burrs, extremely nice, made in Italy. Same with all their other commercial equipment as well, which you might know us from the E37S that we believe in so heavily. We use that in our labs from day to day. We have a couple little informative packets in here and a couple brew methods, also just kind of showing some recipes to start out with, much like the one that we'll be kind of going through today. All right, this top comes off. And we'll be able to quickly pull out this grinder. And it is a nice, hefty grinder. This comes in a couple different colors, including an aqua, there's a mocha, like a light tan color, the black, and the white. So multiple different options to actually pair with different espresso machines as well. And it's a really nice looking grinder here. With these burrs, these 50 millimeter flat steel burrs, the burrs actually move in a way that the top burr stays stationary. They do that so we can actually change between single dosing and hopper-fed brewing methods or grinding methods. So this is something that's unlike many grinders out there. There's not many grinders that you can actually quickly change between single dosing and hopper-fed grinding methods. And it does come with a little dosing cup. Got to clean it off here a little bit. All right. And then as you can see, we have our nice big hopper here. And it does have a little bit of a stop, so it stops a lot of the popcorning as well. And then Ceado actually came out with a very specific design on this as well for their single dose use. So with the single dose use, they actually kind of use this, it kind of looks like a plunger, something that you would almost find in a juicer. So all you would have to do is go ahead and throw on this top. Then you take this plunger with the bellow, and as you dose inside your grinder, you would then throw this on top because it is going to be a gravity-fed single doser, and this kind of helps along with that gravity feed to produce near zero retention. Plugging this in now. There is a switch right on the back side here. So we'll go ahead and throw that on. And then while we're actually talking about this back side, as it's covered in packaging material, you can see this dial. So this dial is actually one of my favorite dials on multi-purpose grinders today. With this, you can actually change between a 0 setting all the way up to a number 9 setting. So yes, those are just numbers to us right now, but the amazing thing about the Ceado is right out of the box, I actually know how many microns this is going to produce at each one of these settings. So with that, if you look at, let's say, a 5, that's going to produce about a 500 micron setting with our grind adjustment. As we go to 6, about 600 microns. As we go to 7, about 700 microns. And we'll stick right around there for our pour over setting today. As we set that up, we'll go ahead and get back to our hoop brewing method. So today I'm going to be using 2 of these filters. They do come with these filters. You can use a couple different filters that we offer on our site, or you can buy extras on our site as well. These are a little bit smaller than AeroPress filters, only slightly, and they also have a little bit of a thinner appearance as well and texture. So that is something to keep in mind, that you can change between a single filter and a double filter with this. Also keeping in mind that this is going to be clamped together down on the bottom side of this. So if you are to agitate, make sure that you are being aware of how much pressure you are agitating with your spoon or whatever you might be agitating with. With that, then all we have to do once we place our filters down below, we just have to screw this on tight and make your little drum. Make sure that's nice and tight on, and we'll go ahead and grab a vessel to brew in. All right, with that, once we have everything set up on this tally, let's see if I can see that screen. I'm going to go ahead and tear out. And with my water at about 202 degrees, since I'm going to be doing our Tolima, our Colombian Tolima by Whole Latte Love, I'm going to want to dial in more for those orange notes. So I'm going for a little bit of a coarser grind, maybe actually going towards this 8 setting, where pour overs and hoops, I typically stick between 6 and 8 for my grind setting on this. So between 600 microns and 800 microns. The 900 microns, you can actually start getting more into a drip brew method as well. So very, very versatile with this. And you can see that we're just going to line up this little line right here to our number, and we'll bring it all the way to about 8. So as we're on our grinder over here and we have our water warming up, we can actually go through a little bit of the settings here as well. So what is great about this is that with this multi-purpose, we have a adjustable fork here that all we have to do is kind of unscrew. We'll be able to lower and raise that top so we can fit a variety of different portafilters on there. And then with that, on espresso settings, towards that 1 to 2 range on our dial, we can actually dial in basically any kind of espresso we want. I see this good for light roast to dark roast, and we have a lot of maneuverability within that grinding range, luckily. So we'll actually switch up a little bit later and do some crema wave. So with this setting, if we want to come back down here, we can do that time setting for when we're going to be dialing in that crema wave. But for single dosing, with this single dose hopper that we have, all we have to do is go ahead and tap both buttons at the same time, and we can switch between either timed or a manual. So with that manual, there's a couple different settings as well. If we turn that setting on, that actually just tells us if we want to just start and hold down as we please to grind, or if we change our setting, all we have to do is start and it'll grind everything inside our hopper. So sometimes that's really going to be unique for our single dosing, or else you don't want to grind out your whole entire hopper. You definitely want to get out of that setting as you switch in between. But luckily, it's super easy. It's just one tap away. And then with that top burr changing, we can easily just change between our single dose and our hopper, as easy as that, and it keeps our grind setting. So that's basically unheard of. With that as well, we can easily put this on our fork and fit our cup as well for that single dosing. So with that, let's go ahead and get to it. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-wet those 2 filters. And while that is saturating, we're going to go ahead and get into this bag of Colombia Tolima. I'm going to go ahead and quickly switch out to our single doser. And the important thing about single dosing is maybe you want to keep your bags a little bit fresher inside the freezer, or you have higher end coffee, or you're switching out your coffee often. It's important to go ahead and single dose instead of keep a hopper full of that really nice coffee that you don't want to go to waste. So luckily with this tally, we can actually quickly switch and be able to utilize this as well to go ahead and weigh out our coffee. So I'm going to go ahead and tear out our dosing cup. And here I'm going to be shooting for about a 1:15 ratio with 17 grams in with our Tolima. And while I'm dosing this out, we can definitely take some questions. Brian, do we have any questions while I'm doing this?
Yeah, certainly. J-Man you sort of covered it, but J-Man was wanting to know if it grinds coarse enough for cold brew.
Does it grind coarse enough for cold brew? It does not, unfortunately. So about at that 900 microns that we see a max level at, we see that being good for maybe a finer French press or a drip method. So nothing in that super saturated cold brew range. It would be a little too fine. You would find your extraction a little too high for that. All right. And eventually finding 17 grams here. And this is going to be a 0 retention grinder when we're single dosing with this billow. So we'll go ahead and test that out. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and dose the coffee right inside our hopper. And I'm just going to use the manual button on this one. And I'm going to quickly have my billow ready. And this is going to give a little bit of a gravity to it, so it really grinds out all of that coffee quickly. You're looking at about 18 grams in about 10.5 seconds, 11 seconds or so. Working the grinder from behind, I definitely had a little spill. And we quickly take a flat palm to that billow to disperse all of our grounds. And it looks like we have some gram of loss here, so we're not going to have the most accurate. And yep, we had about a gram of loss on that table. We can quickly actually adjust. And I'll just throw in a little bit of coffee, maybe about a gram inside there. just to get us going. Make sure everything is accurate as possible, and start our grind again. And quickly stop. All right, and we're at 17.1. Good little guess. I guess I've been doing my job long enough. All right. And with that coffee, we can go ahead and quickly pour out our excess water, which already warmed up our entire vessel as well. And what we're going to do with this coffee is actually dose it right into the center ring. I like to then level out my bed. Throw that back on. And we're going to change our setting on our tally here to a brew assist. So once we're on brew assist, I have, let's see, 15 or 1 to 15 ratio selected today. And I'm going to go ahead and, and I forgot to tear out here. So that's something that you definitely need to do next time. So what we're going to do is go ahead and fake this out really fast to about a 17 or 30. Typically, this will actually help you if you actually tear out the right amount. All right. And with our water ready, we're going to go ahead and do our pour. So with this, it's super easy. All we're going to do is pour at a steady flow rate to the outer ring. This will start at the same time with our timer. And we'll just go ahead and pour to the desired amount for a 1 to 15 ratio, which will be 255. So we're just going to do this on our own and stop that right at 255. And the greatest part about this is now we just leave it alone. So we have amazing extraction percentages, an amazing brew with this radial infusion. Every single time. It's a very forgiving brew no matter what. And we're also not really paying too much attention to time as well during this radial zero bypass brew method. No matter what, you get a solid cup, and it actually does not change that extraction percentage too much. It more so actually changes your caffeine output, how much heat is on that coffee for how long. More so changes that caffeine content than anything else with this method, which is something that we found very interesting inside our studies. All right, and as that's going, we're going to go ahead and switch on over to an espresso pull. And with that, let's go ahead and take a quick question before we actually switch out here.
Right. Erica was wondering how is the coffee different from the hoop than like a V60?
Yes, so very different brew methods here. So with this zero bypass brewing method, it's extremely easy, especially for beginners, something that you don't want to focus on. It takes a little more work to get a proper extraction percentage with a V60. It's a whole entire different method. Oftentimes you'll have to use a very specific method, focusing on how high you're pouring, how low you're pouring, how frequently you're pouring in order to get a really nice cup. And it's very hard to consistently get the same cup. Whereas the hoop, I do one pour and it's as consistent as possible every single time. All right. And as we switch out here, I'm just going to go ahead and throw on my hopper here, open the top, and we'll be able to quickly switch back to our timing method and throw in some of our crema wave. And as you can see, I didn't have to do any sort of adjustment. It's just as quick as that to throw on a hopper and go back to this actual espresso ready method. The only inconsistencies that you might find when first getting this grinder will actually have to do with a process we call seasoning your burrs. Sometimes it takes a little while for it to find its niche, its little spot that you feel comfortable with and consistent with, and that just has to do with the transfer of those oils of the beans to the actual burrs itself, especially with those steel burrs. But it will stay very, very consistent with that. All right. And as I'm preparing that, do we have any more questions as well?
We do, Zach. FLX Enthusiast was wondering how this grinder compares to other multi-purpose grinders.
Gotcha. So how this actually compares to other multi-purpose grinder. This is my grinder of choice due to the consistency of the grind. After a particle analysis that we actually did with the Ceado, it was very consistent and precise with that grind. So not producing too many fines, even though we are at 1,650 RPMs, which is a really high RPM for just that 250 watt motor, which is pretty unheard of for a lot of multi-purpose grinders. And at its entry level price and being able to interchange between a hopper and a single dosing method, I don't know too many multi-purpose grinders that can really match within that price point and ability of that. All right. So with this, we're going to go ahead and quickly, from this other side, go ahead and switch all the way down to 1. So with this, when you actually adjust back down, and I already threw on the hopper, you always want to make sure that as you are going finer on much of any other grinder, including this one, that you want to be grinding at the same time as you make that adjustment finer. So not too many beans are actually within our chamber right now, so I am able to make a pretty quick movement of that. But I'm going to go ahead and start my grinding process as I make this finer to about 1.6 on my grind, so I can go ahead and start espresso. So I'll go ahead and start the grind. And stop. All right, so now that I'm at my new grind, actually not quite. As I approach my new grind, we are almost there. So now I can actually make my movement coarser with no issue. Again, that bottom burr is actually what is changing right now. We're gonna go ahead and try our first dial-in shot, right halfway in between this 1 and 2 in our espresso range. All right, as that hoop is now done, off to the side for a little taste later, I can go ahead and again use my tally, and we'll be able to dial in now. After tearing out our portafilter, let's go ahead and shoot for about 17 grams out. And with this, we can actually go ahead and maybe even dial in and see how many grams out we actually do in the 10-second that it automatically is dialed into. Oh, wrong button. So we're going to go ahead and press our double button for that 10-second. And a nice even distribution. There's a really nice mound of very nice looking grinds. So there's not too much clumping from what I see inside this basket. So it's really not going to take too much puck preparation. So at 10 seconds, we're sitting at about 14 grams here on the dot. It's very consistent. And let's go ahead and get now to our other setting here. I'm going to go ahead and quickly switch that off so I can go ahead and disperse this way. And now this is only going to grind out as I'm pressing the button. So sometimes I like to quickly switch between those so I can get the precise amount of grams out. So we're about 16.8. I'm going to do one last little press. And 17.2. So with this, I'm going to go ahead and use a rounded finger over, kind of dispersing the rest of my grounds out. And as you can see, we have a really nice bed of grinds there. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and turn around here and use a distribution tool to get an even bed and a Wiedemann tamp. Kind of holding it like a flashlight or a doorknob, coming in 90 degrees and getting a nice even tamp there on our bed. And as you can see here, if we want to go ahead and get in there, we have a nice even bed, really nice fines there. very clean along the sides, and there's virtually no loss off to the side there. All right, and we'll go ahead and get over to this extraction now. Using our BZ13, I'm going to be extracting this at about 200 degrees or so. And using our tally again, let's see if we can actually fit this down in here. All right, and I will just go ahead and do a manual shot on the manual button and see how this pulls. Again, we didn't dial this in whatsoever. We just went straight for an extraction between a pour over and espresso. So with this, I'm actually seeing some good things that we don't typically see within a multi-purpose grinder. Right here is what I like to call a full stop. So this is going to give us plenty of room to now dial in that grinder and dial back. So now we know we get to this point where we can actually have a full stop on our espresso, and we can actually then go ahead and go coarser and continue our dial-in process. You might see this as a bad thing, but I think it's a great thing. The fact that we can get fine enough that we can get that full stop means that we have a lot of room to now play with that grind adjustment and possibly sip some pour over at the same time. And as I'm sipping this, do we have any more questions? Nope. Awesome. Wonderful. What we were aiming for here is more of those orange notes, a really nice, light, velvety, smooth Tolima. That's typically what I kind of go for. With the hoop, it actually gives you a lot of ability as well to go a little bit finer with your grind. So if you want a little more body, you can also go a little bit finer and you'll still get really nice extractions. And then utilizing the Life and its very consistent grind size, we can go finer. Because it produces less fines that are way outside of our range, we won't get too much a stopping point with that actual pour over. So this combination is a perfect pair. Being able to quickly switch between a hoop and dial an espresso. In fact, maybe we'll go ahead and try one more. All right, and as we dial in this last one, all I'm gonna do is make a subtle movement. Brian here joining me right now for one of our pour overs, and I'm not lying. This Tolima came out amazing.
It was a good time, right?
Yes, no, it was perfect time. Came out right about at that 4-minute point, but again, we're not paying too much attention to that time. At 4 minutes, which typically with a V60, you're shooting almost for like a 3-minute on average with that V60, and, meticulously watching out for how you're pouring, what circular method you're doing, the height of what you're pouring. It's really difficult to dial in the same coffee. Yep, Brian, you agree?
It's my favorite coffee.
Yep, yeah.
It's my favorite coffee that we have, so it's right how I like it as well. The velvety is a great descriptor that you used.
Yeah, the texture that you get just based off of how many filters you're using, whether or not you're doing a metal filter as well, which metal filters on average, depending on if you're agitating, we actually got around a 19% extraction percentage, whereas if you agitate in the first couple minutes, you can actually get all the way up to about 22% in our extraction percentage with agitation. Today, I went ahead and let it go, and we're probably sitting right around that 20% point with that, just due to previous testing. All right, so let's go ahead and get back to our espresso really fast and quickly dial in something. And remember, with this dial-in process, don't forget that you can always do this dial-in process with us through a CoffeeCast, because you have so much adjustability on this Life grinder that maybe you're going to be utilizing it for flow control. You're going a little bit coarser with that grind size, and you're going to be utilizing the chlorogenic acids off of a coffee and really getting that into those perceived sugars and floral notes. Or you're wanting to go a lot finer, close to like this stoppage that we found for a more body within that actual espresso as well, like you find in our crema wave. All right, so quickly going a little bit coarser, maybe out towards this 2. Again, you don't need to make too many adjustments with this to change things a lot. So we'll go out to this 2, and since we have a hopper on, I'm gonna go ahead and grind out a little bit, just to get back to that actual 2 adjustment, since there are some beans within that hopper chamber. And we're gonna go ahead and maybe I'll just do it fully manual right now. I'm just gonna go and estimate, because what we're looking for is basically a nice mound of grains. And look at that nice distribution of grinds. The solid stream that comes out of this with its anti-static chamber as well. We're not seeing too many grinds up here. And what you do see up here would actually be from those coarser grinds. Because remember, when we go coarser, we're also going to see a lot more static as well. So no matter what, you might find a little bit on there. But as we go to grinding our espresso, I'm seeing no static actually. So very, very impressive. And I'm at 16.7 just eyeballing. Let's see if I can actually show that. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do one more distribution. So it is actually possible to go ahead and eyeball and see that mound. And I'm just gonna use a curved finger over at this point to evenly distribute my grinds. And I'm gonna go straight to my puck preparation. Again, I don't need any sort of WDT tool with this due to that distribution of grinds. I don't see any clumping within this at all, so I wouldn't recommend it. And a nice even tamp there. And if we actually zoom in there, we have a really nice clean puck preparation there. That would be totally ready for a bottomless extraction as well. And we'll go ahead and quickly purge, rinse off that group head. And I'm going to go ahead and use my tally again and go in for a quick extraction, and this will kind of tell me where I need to go with this next extraction. So did I go coarse enough? Are we gonna get flow? Let's find out live right now. And at that 2 adjustment, it looks like we actually are still getting to that stopping point. With this, you might actually see a change over time after we actually season our burrs a little bit more, because now that we're at our 20-second time, I'm actually seeing some flow. But at that 2 point, I would actually go ahead and just try this shot one more time. Now that those burrs are a little more seasoned, there's a little more oil on there, so we might have a different distribution of those grinds as well. Or what we could do to quickly dial that in, I would actually back off my pressure on my tamp maybe a little bit. But as you can see, we're well into our 50-second point. I'm gonna go ahead and stop that. That's nowhere within our range of 20 and 30 seconds. But as you can see, you can still get an amazing crema, an amazing result, no matter what you really throw at this. The fact that we can actually get to that stopping point with a multi-purpose grinder, it's almost unheard of. All right, and any more last questions out there? Perfect. All right, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We're gonna be doing a lot of these lives with lots of other products, much like the Life, the Hoop, the Fellow Stag, the Tally. We got a lot to come, and we're gonna keep rolling out some really nice videos with Brian, Mark back there. Don't forget to look into our CoffeeCast as well if you want to continue this dial-in process with me, where I might go next with this dial-in, going a little bit coarser, and what flavor notes we might get off of that. Feel free to schedule a CoffeeCast with me. We'll continue this dial-in process together on that. And then don't forget to visit our website for more detailed content on both of the Hoop and the Ceado. We did a lot of research on this, a lot of particle analysis. We know these like the back of our hand, and we're happy to help with that. And with that, I am Zach from Whole Latte Love. Thank you for joining me. Have a good one.